Hey guys, I spent 30 nights using a weighted blanket and I wanted to share my experience. When I went online looking for sleep solutions, I'd never even heard of a weighted blanket. It sounded like something that meatheads might use to get stronger while they sleep. The reality is it's more like a therapeutic device, and it is literally just a blanket made of denser material. The extra pressure is meant to provide a calming influence and facilitate better sleep, which is why it's sometimes branded as an anti-anxiety blanket. Personally, I have two problems with the way I sleep. Firstly is trouble getting to sleep. If I can fall asleep in under half an hour, that is a real bonus for me, and it's not uncommon to lie there for over an hour before I drift off. The second problem is that I'm a light sleeper, so if I wake up at 2 or 3 a.m. disturbed by the slightest noise, then I'm very restless and I'm tossing and turning a dozen times before I manage to fall asleep again. So the blanket. Most online retailers agree that a weighted blanket should be 10% of your body weight, if not slightly more. I'm 72 kilos, and out of the highly rated budget options online, I found this 6.8 kilo blanket on Amazon from High Living, which is a little under 10% of my weight. They do sell a 9 kilo blanket, but it's wider, so I figured I'd be paying for extra blanket that would just sit on the mattress next to me and not actually add more pressure, so I didn't go for that one. This is the blanket. It's about 3 or 4 times heavier than a normal duvet. It's quite a struggle to lift it and position it over yourself, so I found it quite funny to go back online and see other listings for weighted blankets where there's some teenage girl with it casually draped over her. This particular blanket has sections that are roughly 5-inch squares, and they're made up of tiny glass beads that you can feel if you rub it, and that's to ensure an even weight distribution. It's made of polyester, the cover, so it's got a plain side, and then the other side is a kind of mink cover that's really soft to the touch. My initial impression on the first night was that while the blanket is clearly weighted, I should have followed the advice and gone with something above 10% of my body weight. Even up to 8 kilos might have been nice. I can tell what the blanket is trying to do, but it's just lacking a little bit of the kind of downward force that I'm expecting. I was worried that it would be really warm underneath it, so the first few nights I went for an empty duvet cover with the blanket on top. On the first night, I woke up briefly at 3 a.m, then again about 45 minutes before my alarm, which is an average night for me. The biggest difference I noticed with the blanket was in my thought process, which is weird to say that that's something that a blanket can influence. My thoughts tend to jump around at night, and with everything going on in the last few months, I've seen more anxiety and restlessness creeping in. I'm also quite precious about my sleep, and if I wake up at 3 a.m, I'll do the mental arithmetic for how many more hours sleep my body needs and how long there is before my alarm in which to get it. With the weighted blanket, my thought process was noticeably different. It was almost as if I had a filter on, and I wasn't capable of worrying to the same degree. It's a really strange experience. I've never taken anti-anxiety medication, but I imagine it's a gentler version of that. I felt calmer, and I was able to have the same thoughts about lack of sleep or concern about the future, but they weren't riddled with anxiety. My habit of switching from my left to my right side 7 or 8 times before I tried to get to sleep was impeded by the blanket, but not eliminated, and I still turned once or twice. That was another indication that maybe a heavier blanket is suitable for me. I didn't overheat at all, and on the third night I went back to having my duvet and laying the blanket over the top. While this was a little bit too warm, it felt much better. I couldn't feel the firmness of the blanket on my body, just the pressure. On average, I would say I was getting to sleep in 15 minutes with the weighted blanket, and if I did wake up at 3 a.m, I had more confidence that I could lie there and fall asleep and wouldn't be fretting about being awake for the next hour. Now, it's not all peachy, there are a few downsides. It does seem to emphasise bad sleeping positions, and my back and neck were a little sore on the second and third night. I was also waking up in the morning feeling like I'd done a small workout, but these minor aches would go within half an hour. As it got warmer, I switched back to the duvet cover and it was still comfortable, and that was when overnight temperatures were staying above 16 degrees Celsius. You can purchase weighted blanket covers that come with internal ties which you attach to the loops on the blanket so it doesn't shift about, but for me laying the blanket on top has been fine. Overall for me it was a very beneficial purchase and I will continue to use it. We had a heat wave over the summer where it was impossible to use, and I'm not going to start taking it on holiday, but when the opportunity presents itself I will opt for the weighted blanket. For anyone watching this who finds that their minds are racing as soon as their head hits the pillow, or they get more anxious with every few minutes that they lie awake, then a weighted blanket could be for you. The online listing states that people with insomnia, anxiety, restless leg syndrome, ADHD and autism could benefit from this, and I can vouch for the first two. If you do end up buying one, then I really hope that it does provide the help that you need. Thanks for watching.